You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Screw your freedom. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is the Q&A and the monologue section. I put out 2 videos today and we're playing a little game with YouTube again, trying to figure out what those dumbasses need from us to leave us alone. Anyways, special note to Robert Wilson. I got your PayPal donation and message. Thank you, sir. I sent an email. It's like, so, and this goes for everyone. If you send an email or a letter and I don't respond, I'm going to tell you most of the time it's because something got jacked up in the system. Shit gets lost all the time, or I don't get people's emails. They're like, why didn't you get my or answer? I'm like, I don't know. It's almost like we're being dicked with. You know, it's SHTF. You can't believe all the crap they're doing to screw with us. You just can't believe it. Like you can't believe. Anyways, let's start with something that you just can't believe. The Biden family, and yeah, that's the same family that's in the White House, the same family that loves to smoke crack, sleep with prostitutes, I mean sex with prostitutes, right? Take showers with their own children. Just what is wrong with these people? And of course, there's not a problem. Anyways, guess what they did? They scored, according to Breitbart News, scored a $31 million deal with people who just happen to have direct connections to Chinese intelligence. That means the Chinese, the People's Republic of China, CIA, their version of the CIA. Folks, if you don't think it has hit the fan, you really need to wake up. We have some incredible problems coming. Get your questions into Jolene, folks. It is the first day of the week. It's the second day of the week. It's Monday, because Sunday is the first day of the week, the way I read the calendar. Anyways, it is Monday. It is time to get into it. There's just so much going on. You cannot believe it. There's a German professor out there. Now, you and I know that the CDC and Dr. Fauci are the real authorities out there. They know everything. They are the experts. Please, folks, understand that. But a top German professor is revealing what he thinks about the emails that Dr. Drippy Faucet has had exposed. And here is his quote. At some point, folks, this is going to completely unravel. I mean, you and I, we have kept up. And if you're on Patreon, patreon.com, if you're at the Prepared Mind on Patreon, you will be getting these kind of articles talking about emails, text messages, actions behind the scenes, what's going on, what other doctors are thinking and saying with regard to that section. And remember, SHTF is not just Cerveza-Bug. It's military, it's political, it's legal, it's academic, it's social, it's professional, it's corporate. Keep all that in mind, right? You've got to have an IQ bigger than that of a fully ripened avocado to get it. That's right. I know I just referred to my good buddy Wilson from the RMZ. But yeah, you've got to have a heartbeat and 2 working brain cells, and then you can start to see what's going on. So this German professor, super duper smart guy, says this about Dr. Faucet. He says, quote, he bears full responsibility. He should be held liable. What's this in regard to? The emails that were discovered talking about research that was funded by the U.S. Yeah, I agree. He needs to be held responsible. Everyone needs to be held responsible. But, you know, we've got this world is not what it should be, folks. It's SHTF like you just can't believe. Get this. I'm not a big fan I'm not a big fan of Representative McCarthy out of California. Yes, he is the Republican leader, minority leader in the House of Republicans, I'm sorry, House of Representatives. It's not quite the House of Republicans, is it? The Supreme Court, he went to them and said, look, the Constitution says in order to vote on a bill, up or down, you have to be there in person. Well, you know, surface a bug. And it's such a dangerous world that the House decided it's going to just do it at once. So here's what the lawsuit states that the Supreme Court was given by the House of Representatives Minority Leader McCarthy. The lawsuit states, quote, although the Constitution allows Congress to write its own rules, those rules cannot violate the Constitution itself, including the requirement to actually assemble in person. I mean, folks, that's what the Constitution says. They must assemble in person. It doesn't say unless there is a pandemic or unless this mean, bitchy old lady's in charge, right? It doesn't say anything about Nancy having special privileges and rights and authority over and above, right? You have to be in line with the Constitution itself. All other rules, as long as they don't violate the Constitution, have at it. Well, the SCOTUS, Supreme Court, came back and their decision, their ruling, folks, was no comment. Denied, they're not even going to take it up, and no explanation. Folks, the Constitution says, right? The lawsuit stated, the SCOTUS said nothing, fucking crickets, but the Constitution says simple language for understanding works. Nancy is lawless. The Supreme Court justices are out of order on this matter. They should be defined. They should be labeled as being seated unconstitutionally. They're corrupt. If they can't see this, if they can't read the Constitution, here it is. What Nancy Pants is doing is unconstitutional. It's that simple. I mean, all they have to do is refer to the Constitution. Hey, read the Constitution. It's right there. You must be there in person. If you want to change this, get a constitutional amendment for your disastrous cerveza bug nonsense. Folks, that's how unbelievably stupid things are. Oh, you're not convinced. You want more? Oh, get your questions in, folks. Right now in America, we have what? We have every natural resource needed to provide for our energy needs. We have oil. We have natural gas. We have uranium. We have coal. Hey, we even have wind and solar. We should be able to supply our own power, right? Well, guess what? U.S. coal stockpiles are near historic lows. Joe Biden took office, folks. The first day in office, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline project, which would have secured our continental supply of energy, right? We would have gotten energy right out of Canada through this pipeline, cheap, safe, effective. Biden kills it. Now we're getting the most ever Russian oil delivered to us, shipped in. That's right, folks, Russian ships. And it's not that I have a problem with Russia or Russian oil, but if Russia is our enemy, our number one enemy, why do we need to be buying oil from them when we have our own? When our neighbor to the north, Canada, the 52nd state of the United States, right after Puerto Rico, or any of the other 51st states, it might be the 57th state. Remember when Barack Hussein Barrisato or Obama said 57 states? It's like, where the fuck did that come from? 57, you know, and he's not using satire or humor or jokes. The dude honestly said 57 states. I mean, does he have his head in Heinz's Heine? 57, Heinz 57. The ketchup queen, is his head up there? I got to tell you, folks. Anyways, let's get back to the thing that you can't believe. We have massive amounts of coal in this country. A massive percentage of American electricity comes from the burning of coal to spin the generators. U.S. coal stockpiles are near historic lows. We have to get our as much or more than ever oil from Russia. Why is this happening? The European Union, Europe Europe has what? Europe is having an energy crisis. Prices are going through the roof, up, up, up. For what reason? Because they're shutting down everything that makes sense and doing more of what makes no sense. You can't believe they're creating this SHTF, but they are, folks, and they're doing it on purpose. Are you prepared? Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Do you have a plan to deal with power shutoff, food shortages, massive inflation, societal unrest, chaos on the streets? Do you have a plan for all that? I mean, your plan doesn't have to be, well, I'm going to dress up like Rambo and go kick some ass. No, but you need to have a plan. I tell you, folks, there's a PA, a physician's assistant, has saved hundreds of lives of people who, what he said, quote, needlessly died. There were hundreds of people needlessly dying in hospitals, and he solved that problem by treating them. And his medical license is now suspended. Guess why? Guess why? Unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable. Now get this. We've been talking about Russia. And it's a massive, folks. The problem out there is becoming really apparent. It's not that we can't believe it. It's just I can't believe it. Why are they continuing to push for violence and war in Russia, with Russia? I just stated Russia's supplying us with an immense amount, as much oil as they've ever provided. Why are we going to go to war with Russia? What is this thing with Ukraine? Ukraine is not a NATO ally. I mean, it's not a NATO member. Ukraine used to be a part of the Soviet Union, so having it allied with Russia doesn't make it a bigger threat. It's a continuing threat. What's the problem here? Now, I spoke yesterday or last night with someone who is a businessman who has spent a good deal of time over in Russia in the past, Soviet Union, the Soviet former states. And he understands. He said, hey, there's just a ton of corruption over there. They're doing their best. And he's like, but, you know, what is the United States now? Look at the Biden administration. We're going to talk about, you know, just nasty fascism, folks. Nasty fascism. But, you know, over there, they're equally having their challenges. So what is going on with the Ukraine? What is the deal with that? It almost seems like they're getting that ready for conflict, to distract people, to allow governments to hide their mistakes. This has happened with war. When all else fails, when they can't control the currency, when the economies take a shit, they take us to war. Well, NATO has now gone to the next step. Like they've gone to the next step. They've deployed more jets and more ships into the Baltic. Right? They're sending more ships. This is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And the United States is a member to it. Right? It's a member to NATO, the European and North American alliance that used to exist solely to oppose Soviet, Russian, communist aggression. Well, Russia is no longer the Soviet Union. It's no longer communist. We have more calls for socialism and social programs in the West than you hear from Russia. So they're doing this, folks. They're sending more jets. They're sending more ships. They're sending more military personnel closer to Russia. So Russia responds by sending 20 warships into the Baltic Sea. It's becoming contentious, folks. We're getting closer to a Cuban Missile Crisis type scenario where somebody's going to park a warship off of somebody's coast or capital and have a bunch of ICBMs aimed at them. That's what the Cuban Missile Crisis was. The Soviet Union parked a bunch of missiles in Cuba. You know, just a few, 50 miles off the coast of Florida. And so Kennedy responded. There was the Bay of Pigs incident, which was the CIA all the way back in the early 1960s, acting on its own unilaterally without the president's authority, permission, blessing, and they had an invasion of Cuba, another country. This is the CIA again, folks, right? You had old Mr. Dulles there involved in it. Yeah, Dulles, Alan Dulles. He was also on the Warren Commission to investigate JFK's head exploding assassination. Yeah, well, Dulles and a bunch of others got fired for their participation in the Bay of Pigs, which of course caused the Cuban Missile Crisis, which almost got us into World War Nuclear III. But here we are. They're gearing up and doing something similar again. Is the CIA going to have another Bay of Pigs style invasion, this time of Ukraine? Now, understand this, folks. Bay of Pigs. I want to get into this a little bit. Bay of Pigs, the CIA trained a bunch of Cuban exiles. They were training Cuban exiles to go and perform a military coup in Cuba to take over the country. You know, an insurrection, a real armed insurrection with the very real effort of capturing and killing those in office and taking control of a country, a small one. That was what the Bay of Pigs was. It was failed. The CIA failed, the guerrillas, Cuban guerrilla fighters failed, and almost caused World War III. So now we have Ukraine. We have American assets. We have troops. We have advisors. Advisors was a pretty word they invented for CIA agents who were helping train and perform actions. Guerrilla, terror, military incursion, all manner of stupid. Well, they're doing it, or at least they're training, training in the Ukraine right now. I'm sure there are CIA advisors in Ukraine along with other military personnel. Are they going to, at some point, pull another Bay of Pigs fiasco? Are they going to play some game, right? Are they going to make it look like they're Russians trying to take over? Is it going to be a takeover of the Ukraine government by U.S. operatives with other guerrilla fighters? You see, Ukraine is in big trouble right now. Tons of corruption there. According to my friend who's been on the ground over there in the former Soviet states, he said, John, they've got massive resources in Ukraine. It's great farming. They've got natural resources. It's resource rich. But the government, because of its corruption, hasn't done a good job of creating a business-friendly environment that allows for prosperity. You know, what I like to call freedom. So, who is going to make the first move and try taking control of the government or claiming the government is under threat and they're going to go in and save them? Folks, this is a movie plot that Tom Clancy could have wrote, but it's playing out like you can't believe because we have the biggest idiots in charge of our government and our military. We have a woke military leader in Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and General Milli Vanilli. I mean, is he going to get his lipstick and nails done when he has a Zoom meeting with his Russian counterpart to discuss whether or not we need to go to war with each other? Understand, folks, wars are political in nature. They are not. They don't just happen. Both sides can talk to each other. Diplomacy is supposed to lead up, right? Even military figures. I mean, don't we remember General Milli Vanilli called his Chinese counterpart and said, don't worry, we're not going to obey President Trump if he wants to take any aggressive action against China. At least that's what he said he did. Survey-Subug is failing. The economy has already failed. The banking system is a mess. The financial system is a mess. The investment system is a mess. They've screwed everything up. They're going to need a great reset, and I think the government is going to cause it, right? Their nonsense is failing, folks. But countries like Russia are not going to play ball. They're not going to allow themselves to be threatened. They have become very, shall we say, self-sufficient out of necessity, because the United States and the West, Europe, have given Russia a hard time for many years and kept them sanctioned, primarily because they would not accept the Western cabal banking system to run their currency in Russia. Putin has protected that above all else. Above all else. Now he's backed out, no more US bonds. He's not funding or anything else. He's not paying for our bonds, but now they are supplying oil to us. Does the US not see? Or have they set us up? Has the Biden administration, the banking cabal, and all these idiots set us up by cutting off Canadian oil to the max extent possible, creating trade restrictions between ourselves and Canada because of cerveza bug, and you better be Jim Jones juicinated. Or is Canada going to load oil onto a barge in Vancouver, ship it 30 miles into the United States of America, and offload it with a ship in order to avoid, right, having to truck it? It's ridiculous. You can't believe they're doing this, folks, but they're doing it. They pushed us to the point where, well, if we piss Russia off, perhaps Putin will say, look, you have all this Russian oil going to you, done. No more oil for you. No soup for you. No oil for you. Okay, no oil. We in the United States, with our shale oil reserves dropping, with our domestic production squelched by Biden, with our Canadian connection terminated by Biden, the Middle East, Iran, pissed off. Saudi reserves are actually a lot lower than they're letting on. We're going to have an energy crisis here in the United States of America. Period. You like paying for $5 a gallon gas? How about $10 a gallon? People will be screaming for electric vehicles if we had computer chips to make them work, which we don't, because of Biden, because of leftists, because of globalists who want their great reset. I didn't think I was going to go into this as deep, but I just felt it was really important, folks. So look into the future. Trends forecasting. Seeing what these idiots are doing, right? On the one hand, Russia's our good buddy, giving us oil, energy. On the other hand, Russia's the enemy and they're bad. Makes no sense, does it? Kind of like the Trading with the Enemies Act and World War II, where American corporations like Ford and Standard Oil, aka Chevron, were doing massive amounts of business with the Nazis while we were at war with them. Unbelievable. So much so that Ford Motor Company sued the United States government for damage to their manufacturing plants that was done in World War II. Their German, Nazi German military machine making truck parts. Those Ford parts, folks. I'm not stupid. I've got a good memory. I've done some studying. I figured it out, right? It seems like when we're at war with an enemy, everyone in government seems to benefit, either more power or more money. And same with corporations. They make money off of both sides. They make it coming and going. They've screwed everything up, folks. It's SHTF like you can't believe. And they're probably going to want to take us to war. Now, I'm going to switch gears on you a little. Take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Repeat if necessary. Have you gotten your Jim Jones juice? Whoops-a-daisy. Welcome back, folks. We're not messing around here. This isn't a joke. It's not a hobby. This is the real world. And I got something here. When I say SHTF like you can't believe, Folks, King George himself, the very dictatorial, tyrannical a-hole of England back in 1776, he would be jealous of the power that is being exercised and executed against Americans. California, folks, the place of my birth, California. The California Democrats who run the state have proposed a bill to give Jim Jones juice to 12-year-olds, folks, without parental consent. That's right, down to 12 years old. Who do you think is going to do this? That's right, the schools. Well, I'm sure they could go to a clinic also, or maybe a pharmacy, who knows? Maybe everywhere the juice is available, a kid, 12 years old, 13, 14, 15, without parental consent, can seek and get their own Jim Jones juice. Parents, obviously, should and are outraged at this. But it's California, folks. Only the biggest tyrants on the planet would ever dream of doing anything like this. Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, other communists, they would love to do this. They would probably, hey, look, they killed their enemies, but they wouldn't mess with the kids. I mean, well, Hitler, John, he had his Hitler Youth. Yeah, he had his Hitler Youth. He loved that. But did he say, we're going to take the pride of Germany, our children, and inject them with poison? I don't think Hitler did that. He used them, he psychologically abused them, but he didn't go this far. Same with King George. They didn't even have, any version of Jim Jones juice back then. They didn't even know what germs were, except, they knew what tyranny was. And the amount of power militarily, and power technology, and power medical, and power with communications, and power with transportation. Imagine what tyrants like King George would do today. I'm telling you what, they would do exactly what Biden, Nancy, Fauci, what any of these scumbags have been doing. He would do the same thing. They are no better, folks. They have more power and they're using it. They're not afraid. When I say, folks, it is SHTF like you can't believe, it is the beginning, just the beginning of 2022. And look at what they're doing. They're not quitting. Folks, there's countries that are going like, we're done. England, Ireland, Czech Republic, Sweden, done. Cerveza bug, done. Rules, regs, Jim Jones juice, masks, we're done. Why is the United States pushing? Why is California saying, well, let's just give it to kids then? Why the push? Why the demand? Unbelievable. And this really just came in, folks. I told you about Russia. I can't get off the Russia thing. Russia. See, the Russians are serious. They don't have a woke military. They're training their military to kill people and blow shit up the old-fashioned way. They have a bunch of testosterone-driven young men out there who are praying for war so they can go kick some ass. That used to be what the American military was about. It was fearsome, right? No other country in the world wanted to screw with us because the Army and Marines would be up their ass as if they were a proctologist. They wouldn't like that. Now we have a woke military that probably has many units that have teddy bears and timeout corners where they can go get some, safe space. I pray that special forces, I pray that Marine Expeditionary Units, recon, are not part of that ridiculousness. I pray, and I'm not certain, folks, but I'm staying in contact with the military as best I can. That we actually have a working military, but I don't know, the support units, look out. Whew. Anyways, the Pentagon is now putting troops on high alert over Russia-Ukraine tensions. It's not Russia-Ukraine tensions, folks. It is U.S.-Russia tensions. let's do this. I've done enough. It's time to get to what you want to talk about. I've got a bunch more stuff right there in my list to discuss, but it is now your turn. It is your time. You on Patreon. You sign up at patreon.com. You get to ask the questions.
Are you ready?
Come on, man.
I couldn't help it. Had to do that, folks. Welcome back. Jolene. She has been up probably all night, but she's always up, always working for you and me. And she's got Oregon Patriot up for us, up first. And this is what he has to say. What we're seeing in real time is the world's bad actors who want to see America fall get lined up to take advantage of Biden and his puppeteers' weakness. Keep your powder dry, folks. This is interesting. Are we seeing this in real time? What I learned when I was a Marine was that nothing was done in real time. Everything was agreed upon ahead of time. Plans were made ahead of time. Actions were taken ahead of time. By the time the media gets a hold of it and reports it to you and I, it's already started and in some cases done. I remember getting back from an operation and the news was like, and this is now happening. I'm like, dude, I just got off a plane or got on a plane to deal with that and it's over. And you're talking about it like it might happen. Unbelievable weirdness, folks. So real time, we're seeing, remember, we're behind. We have to use our intuition, intuitive guidance, mental, to see into the future, to predict what they're doing next. Because they won't tell us until they've had their meetings, decided what to do, and they're carrying it out. Now, world's bad actors. Yeah, the Davos boys, the banks, the corporations, the politicians, they want to see America fail. They do. I have no doubts. Look at the Democrat Party. Look at all the weak Republicans in Washington, D.C. that refuse to stand up and fight for this country, our Constitution. In fact, the Democrats and rhinos are working against it. How can you say the First Amendment has limitations? How can you not read the Second Amendment? How can you not read the Constitution and see that in order to vote in Congress, you have to be present? In person. It's right there. Right? And yeah, all of these people are lined up. They're taking full advantage of the controllable weakness in Washington, D.C. These people practically, they should have a sign on their door, America for sale. Buy your piece here. Buy my vote. You bet, folks. Keep your powder dry. You bet. Do you need to be locked and loaded? Probably not. But powder dry, yes. Well supplied, well stocked up, well prepared, and a plan, you bet. Thank you, Oregon Patriot, for the great questions that you provide us. Folks, if you have a question, there's no stupid question. There are only questions that don't get asked. Right? And how can you be ready if you don't ask the question? FJP13 checks in and says, has not the reset occurred? A winner will never be, only the spoils of war. When you say has not the reset occurred, the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, right, German, dare I say fascist, works with the Davos boys, the World Economic Forum, all of these big business and big government types, all coming together to, cooperate with one another for our benefit, right? We have fat chance. It's for themselves, their benefit. Remember, they're going to own everything. You'll own nothing by 2030, and you will like it. The Great Reset is not an event. You won't wake up on January 26th and go, hey, we just had a great reset. How's it feel? No, see, the reset process is started. Everything is a process. Process. Everything's a process. Event A followed by event B, followed by event C, D, so on and so forth. Ad nauseum. The goal is to get from a constitutional republic all the way over to here, their social fascist nightmare neo-feudal system, where you and I are feudal serfs and they are the elite oligarchs. That's where they want to get to. So where are we in this process, right? Where are we? We're not at the very beginning. Now we're in process. We're in process. They're pushing, trying to use cerveza, trying to use war, trying to use banking, trying to use social pressure to get all the way there. Now, the spoils of war, FJP, the booty in maritime terminology, right? If you win, you get the prize, right? Do they win all the way? Well, a winner, right? If they get the money, if they get the control and power, they consider that a win. Will we have a country left when it's over? I have no idea. But I know that people like freedom. I know right now, like shifting sands in the tide, Americans are moving to areas where they can be more free. Right? Mr. T leaving California. I left California. Lots of people leaving California. And the people who are leaving first are Republicans, folks. Yeah, have no doubt. Democrats are leaving as well. And they're relocating in places like, oh, sadly, Arizona. But they love New Mexico. They love Colorado. They love Montana. They're screwing those states up, and I'm really sorry about that. But, you know, states like Texas and Florida, I have read the information. They are getting a lot of Republicans. In fact, the whole country is kind of turning Republican. I think the Democrats are being seen, and those who are, shall we say, independent or moderate are going, you know what? That's not how our country should be. And just because I thought I was a Democrat doesn't mean I agree with the shit that's coming out of Washington, D.C. There needs to be a rebirth, a renaissance of the concept of liberty and freedom, the concept of law and order and justice. Let us hope we get there, and we get there quick. The spoils of war. When a country defeats another country, they typically take their resources, they take their gold too. When any country loses in war, the victor goes and finds all the gold and transports it back to their country. That's how that works. But anything else, folks, natural resources, they take it. That's what they're doing with the United States of America. They're divvying it up, folks. What do you think China's doing over here? What do you think China, right? Let's do this. Let's move on. Thank you very much there, FJP. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone's support at the zoo. Sunday nights, folks, the zoo, Sunday Night Live. We had good turnout last night. I know that it's football season. I know, I get it. And there's a lot of people watching football. Some of our, shall we say, less enthusiastic preppers. But as soon as football is over, I'm sure the numbers are going to skyrocket. Well, I think numbers are going to skyrocket as soon as, let's see, a couple of mortars are lobbed, a couple of bombs go off, a couple of jets strafe some troops somewhere over there on the Eastern Front. That's an old reference, huh? Oregon Patriot says, I saw a live video of contractors burying storage containers underground on the White House lawn. Any idea what the hell they're doing? No, I have no idea. I do know that storage containers, they don't want people to see, shall we say, weaponry being deployed. So weapons can be designed to be kept in a storage container, you know, a size of a anywhere from the size of, let's just say, a refrigerator or smaller, all the way up to shipping containers that contain full-on weapon systems, guidance. Everything, of course, is controlled, through passwords and internet. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're burying stuff there. Of special note, if you're not aware, there is an entire underground government continuity complex under the White House and under Washington, D.C. It is a maze of tunnels and bullshit under the White House and all of Washington, D.C. You see, Washington, D.C. is that small, little tiny area, right? It is that little pile of dirt. It is not huge. It's not vast. It's not expansive. It's not a state. It's the city of Washington, District of Columbia, and they can't get more real estate. So essentially, you've got what you can see from an airplane or while you walk or drive around, and underneath there are layers and layers and layers of, well, government layers. But by that I mean LAIRS, like the evil layer. Yeah, they have layers of layers everywhere because they can't get more dirt and make it bigger, so they're going deep. And it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have defense systems they need to bury under an inch of soil and grass in the event they feel they need to deploy that to defend themselves, folks. Interesting stuff, huh? Yeah, before 2020, the election, we didn't need what's in Washington now. Now Congress has a fence, barriers, armed military. The White House now has a secondary barrier put up, concrete. Who are they afraid of? And folks, if another military, let's just say the Russians or the Chinese invaded, do you think they're going to be stopped by an additional layer of fencing? It's asinine. That is for us, the people, to see that the White House and the president cannot be approached. They're untouchable, right? And perhaps these buried containers are HE, high explosives, so that if some, shall we say, enthusiastic person lost their mind and built their own D9 tank, taking a Caterpillar bulldozer and armoring it and then driving it into DC, I'm sure they would have something in place to blow it sky high before it could get to the White House and wreck it. That's the best I can guess for this. Is it's some sort of armor tank stopping stuff, like the worst case scenario civilian could do. But stranger things have happened, right? What a world. Shit it span like you cannot believe. All right. We've got Latin American preparedness in, and he says Trump was the only president not to get the U.S. in a foreign conflict. Increasing tensions in Ukraine with diplomats and citizens being told to leave. What are the chances Biden's war will be Ukraine? Well, let's start with point number one you made about Trump. Let's see. When he took office after Barack Hussein, Barry Soetoro, dipshit Obama went in, who did he pissed off and then kissed the ass of the Iranians. He was pissing off North Korea. He was getting pretty good at pissing off China. He was pissing everyone off. Trump came in and he got North Korea to simmer down. He was like, hey there, little camper, why don't you just chill a bit, settle them down. Oh yeah, the Obama-Biden administration also created huge conflict in Syria. Yeah, I wonder why. Could it have anything to do with that oil pipeline they were trying to push through there? Could be. Anyways, yeah, Trump disarmed the Iranian issue. Trump looked like he was going to cause conflict to break out in Syria, but for some reason, somehow, it went the opposite direction, 180 of what everyone was seeing. It was very fascinating. Russia was right there watching closely, and there was a big fear. And I myself was very concerned because the U.S. bombed areas within Syria. And I am pretty much 100% certain that those bombings were to take out, shall we say, mercenary efforts to maintain a terrorist control within Syria. And that is why Russia did not respond with efforts to stop what Trump was doing. So Trump did not get us in any new wars, and he was trying to slowly wind down Afghanistan. He didn't do what Biden did, which was abandon ship, hand over all of our military, $85 billion worth. I mean, we're looking, folks, $85 billion. It's like 2% of our, federal government expenditures? I mean, if someone went into your bank account and took $200 out of your $10,000, you would feel it. You'd be like, hey, they just handed that to a bunch of terrorists. Anyways, let's stay on target here. So yeah, Trump kind of disarmed the war effort. Biden is doing everything he can to stir it up and make it worse. Your question, right? He's increasing tensions, telling diplomats, their families to leave. He's talking about sending troops. Troops are now on alert. NATO is sending in ships. NATO is sending in jets. NATO forces are gearing up. The Russians are sending their troops, their equipment from other areas of Russia over to the western border against Ukraine. Up in Belarus, they are on their border. You bet, folks. It's looking like this is going to be Biden's war. Right? Obama had his, Bush had his, Clinton had his, and here we are. Now it's Biden's turn. Yeah, Trump really seems to be the only one who hasn't gotten us into a war. Let's see. Let's see. Reagan, no war. George H.W. Bush, Gulf War. Funny how this works, huh? Funny. Well, it's not so funny, especially if you or your family has loved ones that are holding M4s and are in harm's way. Let us move on, if we shall. Thank you, Latin American Preparedness. And we're going to move on to James Nicholson and his statement. He says, we have a lot of oil reserves unless we sold it off. Just saying. That is a fact, James. We do have a lot of oil reserves, or we've been told we have a lot of oil reserves. So let me ask you this question. If we have such vast, untapped oil reserves, which I have heard about, I've heard we have it. We have enough oil to last the United States 200 years. Do they just tell us that so we stay calm? Because if we have such vast, untapped oil reserves, why aren't we getting them instead of spending massive amounts of money fracking? Fracking has been demonstrated to cause earthquakes where there were not earthquakes. How can that be good? Fracking injects toxic chemicals down into the strata, substrata, water tables. How is that good? It's very expensive. Fracking is, to get out a very limited quantity of fuel. In fact, I've pointed this out, and many other experts have pointed it out as well, which is, the experts is where I got my information from. Fracking is energy negative, right? So 100 years ago, you would drill down, you would hit some oil, and then there'd be a gusher, literal oil with no pump, just spraying out of the ground, a gusher. That's how much oil there was in many areas. Right? It would take a little bit of energy, but it would produce tons of oil. Right? Oil. Worked really good. Right? 1 barrel's worth of energy created 100 barrels worth of energy in oil. It was very efficient, very profitable, very productive, because we are an energy intense civilization. We need energy. Right now, in order to get 4 barrels of oil's energy, not 100, but 4, only 4, it takes one whole barrel. So it's instead of getting 100, you only get 4. It's 2,500% less efficient. Now, when it comes to fracking, it's my understanding that it's energy negative. In other words, you put in a barrel of energy and you only get out 0.8 of a barrel of energy. Kind of like taking corn to create ethanol. It takes a lot more energy to turn corn into ethanol than what you get when you burn that ethanol in a car. It is counterproductive, which to me means it's counterintuitive. It is a waste of energy. It's a waste of energy. So I asked the questions, why are we doing ethanol? Well, it's to clean up the air. Really? It enriches certain people. Certain farms get subsidized in certain political members' states. Don't think this isn't about money, folks, and control and power and money. So James, I mean, I'm not doubting you, man. I've heard that we have huge amounts, big giant pools of oil, and we're moving into the electric vehicle age. We're moving past the internal combustion engine for the most part. We're supposed to be moving to electric vehicles. Battery technology over the next few years is supposed to increase tremendously. Technology, composite materials, light, weight, safe, everything, right? So if you're EV, let's just say you're driving down the road and you get rear-ended by I don't know, you get rear-ended by an idiot, someone who had you get rear-ended by an idiot, your EV, you're not going to end up going to the hospital. You're just going to get, a couple of bruises and smaller injuries, right? The EVs, you're better for power, better for energy, better materials, better life. We're supposed to get to this better place. Yet, they won't tap this oil reserve that we've all been told exists. Why not tap it until we finish up the EV technology and then we can just leave it in place? Why are we spending all this money on ethanol? Why are we spending all this money on fracking? To me, it is just counterintuitive. Who's lying to us? The people that say we have a bunch of oil, or the government saying they want to fix our problems? Or is it both are lying? Who knows? Thank you, Joe James. Let's keep an eye on that. If you hear anything to the contrary, let me know. We got Frankie Rios checking in. And thank you again for your support on Sunday Night Live's, Frankie. And he says, Biden is still being paid by Chinese intelligence. Yeah, that would be that $31 million that I was referring to, that Breitbart is quoting. He says, to the tune of 41 million. Oh, okay, 41 million it is then. Anyone else see a problem here? Surely you jest. Yeah, there's a huge problem, folks. Nancy Pants Pelosi in Congress is in big trouble. They're getting a lot of flack because they've allowed themselves to insider trade. That is, Congress people trading on Wall Street, making a bunch of money buying and selling stocks because they know what's coming, because they just have to say a few words and cause the market to go up or down. They know what policies, EPA requirements, regulations are going to be pushed. They have intelligence committees, conferences that meet with corporate leaders and find out where they're heading. Oh, yeah, so they're going to change that. They're going to pretend like, yeah. Well, I guess we shouldn't do that anymore. Well, that's corruption, yeah. What about the president? I mean, this entire Hunter Biden fiasco is insane. It is SHTF like you can't believe. Let's see. The vice president, Senator Biden's son, is a cocaine addict, gets kicked out of the Navy. His dad becomes vice president, and he somehow gets on the board of an energy corporation in Ukraine, Burisma, works out a bunch of deals in China on behalf of someone called the big guy who wants his 10% cut, gets a couple $1 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow. How many billions of dollars in business did he line up with China? So yeah, they get paid 31, 41 million dollars by China. That's just what we know about. How much have they got that we don't know about? I mean, I guess Dr. Jill Biden and the entire Biden clan of the Democrat Party, they've got no problem. They're all being paid handsomely for selling the entire nation down the river. I mean, can you imagine, folks? Imagine George Washington. Let's just say God resurrected him for 100 days and said, Big George, I'm going to put you back in Washington so you can walk around and I'm going to tell you what each and every one of these politicians are doing. I think that George Washington would lose his mind in those 100 days, seeing that the president and his family are selling the country out, making deals with intelligence, our enemies, seeing what Congress is doing, enriching themselves and crapping all over the Constitution. The Constitution, a document setting up a government that was fought for with the blood of patriots and their families, sacrificing for freedom. Now it's just being sold like a commodity that they have the right to dispose of. What an incredible horror show we have going on, folks. Unbelievable. Where do we go from here, folks? Okay, stop. There we go. We got Frankie Rose says, hey, John, what are your thoughts on the Convention of States happening in the backdrop now? When I first heard about the Convention of States getting together, it was decades ago that there was a congregation or a meeting by duly elected members, political activists from all the states to try and tell the federal government, hey, get in line, obey the Constitution. It's been something that has been tried time and again to no avail. It's produced nothing. A lot of people fear that, well, if they said, hey, look, the Constitution is now null and void, we vote to get rid of it, we need a constitutional convention. Well, what are we getting in return? How does the government operate at all? Is it legitimate, this Convention of States? What force does it have? I mean, I could stand up and proclaim all kinds of things, but if the government de jure or the government de facto, that which is in place, if it doesn't recognize it and it just does what it wants, it doesn't matter what any Convention of States does, whether or not it's legitimate. And that's really a big thing, is the government itself legitimate? It's not acting on our behalf. It's not obeying the Constitution. So is it legitimate? Well, in my opinion, no. The Supreme Court is not doing its job. The president isn't doing his job. Congress are not doing their job. In fact, they're doing the opposite. What is their job? To represent the people who elected them, to uphold, obey, defend, and honor the Constitution. And they're failing in all those things. It is an illegitimate government. There's nothing I can do to stop it. But what I can do is become better prepared and stay well informed of circumstances. I can support political causes that are about liberty and constitutional government. So the Convention of States, yeah, it's for liberty. It's for legitimate government. But in today's day and age, how safe is it to join a convention of anything if the United States government, the FBI, Department of Justice, looks at you and says, hey, we see you as a threat? And remember, folks, the government can do that, and they've got 50% of the population, 50% of the people in this country supporting them and their insanity. Now, there was a lunatic woman over the weekend who didn't like the fact that there were legitimate, licensed, or permitted protests in Washington over the mandates. She blew her top. She was stopped and wasn't allowed to go down a particular street. It was shut down, so she threw a giant fit. She had a meltdown. Now, here's the deal. I love a good rant. You can scream and yell and cuss and act all kinds of the fool if it makes sense, if what you are saying is true, factual, legitimate, and supported by common sense and logic. If you are an illogical moron making no sense and you go on a big public rant, then everyone should be throwing tomatoes at you. So I'm going to let you listen to this, and I hope it comes through clear. It's a Twitter, it's a tweet, it's out there. I shared it with lots of you. I don't know if this is going to show up real well, but let's just listen to this lunatic and understand half the country thinks like this. Half the country thinks like this. And they would have no problem sending the FBI after you. In fact, these are the same people who have said what? These same people have said that they support the idea of concentration camps for you. These are the same people in California who want to give children the Jim Jones juice without your permission or acknowledgement. These are the people who want you to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed with their thought process. These are the people that want to lock you up and deny your rights. Listen to what this one has to say. Yeah, they're crazy. They're absolutely nuts, folks. No logic, no reason, just emotions. They have lost it. My recommendation is to be prepared, continue to stay aware of current events, and please share this video, all Prepared Mind material. Go to the R Syndicate. Thank you again, Jolene. Thank you again, Uman. Thank you to everybody for helping supply information and keep us well informed of the lunatics out there. I mean, that was real. That was a real lunatic, folks. Not an insane asylum. That was Washington, D.C., and the mentality of the people who live there, who call it their territory. It's no longer our country, folks. It's being run by the lunatics. They run the asylum. Get prepared, and I'll see you bright and early. Please watch the video shorts out there and share video shorts with others. These are the 1-minute videos we're producing. The reason we produce those is they're short enough, hopefully, to get the attention of those with short attention spans until such time as they come to realize they need more information, which requires more details, more thinking. And that's what this channel is all about. You guys have bucked the system for close to a decade now. When everyone else was doing 1, 2, and 3-minute videos, we've been doing 20, 30-minute videos, hour-long videos on topics and discussing it and then asking for more. Right? Who is intelligent and who has the attention span of a child? You, my friends. Chance favors the prepared mind. Aren't you glad you're a prepper? Semper Fi. Godspeed.